Welcome everybody. We have Scott with us today who's just finishing his program at APS with his jet training, and so we're going to chat with him about his experience that he had here with us. So Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll kind of bounce questions off of each other here as we go through the interview. So
great.
Maybe just starting with what you do and what you fly.
Sure, yeah, I'm the distributor for Airbus helicopters for the US and Canada. I'm also a sales agent for Airbus Corporate Jets, and I sell the Airbus 320 and 321 and 220. I've been flying corporate jets for probably about 10 years. I own a Citation 501. I fly a variety of different jets and member of CJP. And I have several CJP friends that have said this is a great course. I've known Random for a long time and flown air shows and known him from the air show industry as well. I fly a aerobatic helicopter, a BO-105. I fly the P-51 and I own a North American T-6, and I love aviation. I've wanted to be an aviator since I was a little boy.
Wow.
So I feel really blessed to have had the experiences I've had. And I'm always seeking training. One of my big takeaways as I became more and more experienced was how little I knew. And I found out that every day that there was something to learn. And Randy has tried to get me, here several times. I came to one of your events and
Right.
I was sold.
In this very room, actually.
In this very room.
That's right.
And
that's right.
so I was sold, and it has been a fantastic experience.
So you went through the program. Maybe talk about that a little bit. Number of flights, what you flew, just kind of
Sure.
an overview of your this is your third day, right?
My third day.
Okay.
So I did 2 flights in the extra, one with Randy and one with Duke.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mentioned before, I was like, why are you using extras? That just it seems counterintuitive to flying jets.
Right.
But it develops the skill set that you need to have. And I'm a experimental test pilot as well, so I'm referring to things as push or pitch as opposed to push.
Right.
And I'm having to change my language so that it conforms to what you're teaching. And at first I really had a hard time with that. But if I would have gone right into the jet, I wouldn't have gotten the benefit
Right.
that I did. So flew 2 flights in the extra, which was fantastic. Did the low-level flight, and then really what I was anxious to do was the high-level flight this morning, and it was amazing. To get to altitude, that's where I'm flying, 35 to 41,000 feet, right?
Exactly. Most of the time, actually.
Most of the time, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you could have an upset close to the ground, but you're at this altitude. You need to really see how the airplane performs. But it was really that flight where I put all of the language together properly and slowed down. And you need to slow down because things happen slower. Mm-hmm. And so when you're putting the inputs in and you're using your program, the recoveries were very intuitive.
Good. Now, did you do simulation as well?
We did. We did the simulator, which was great because it allows us to do these maneuvers and stop. Right. And evaluate that. We did the VR as well, which was really interesting. I'm a VR guy. I'm a distributor for a VR simulator company as well.
Well, of course you are.
Which is Loft Dynamics, which is a full motion helicopter simulator,
Right,
and it's FAA certified. Okay. And I've done some of the certification testing for that as well. But being able to sit back and watch the attitude of the airplane and the lift vectors change, and so many people don't understand that. Right. And you're taking kind of flight test procedures, and you're making them so that the average person can come in and understand that.
Right.
And I do that a lot. I use data acquisition in my personal flying and in my air shows. And when you have quantitative data that you can support with what you're training, it isn't my opinion or your opinion. It becomes factual.
That's awesome. So why don't we just kind of go through the different components of the program a little bit. So the first part, you talked about the extra being valuable. To your point, very often jet pilots want jet training. That said, on the initial program at least, the extra 300 is really good about the human factor side of it. Things happen very quickly in there. It's an opportunity to practice, repetition proficiency, get the strategy down, work on that say and do technique that we talk about as well. And we find that it is really important before you go into the jet. Now, when people come back for recurrent, they can do it all in the jet, part in the jet, simulator, piston, but it's important to have that experience. So it sounds to me like you really saw the value in that, and then we'll jump into the jet part of it.
Sure, I sure did, and as you know, the roll rates are much higher. There's less mass, and the machine maneuvers much quicker. So it really kind of sets your cues up to be able to respond. When you get in the jet, things are happening a little bit slower.
Yeah.
And I remember early in the training, slow down. Push, roll, power, stabilize, and I'm thinking, I've got to maneuver. I mean, I'm a test pilot, so I want to get out of whatever condition I'm in.
Exactly.
But when you're training, you will perform exactly how you've trained. And I think the number is that unless you've performed something at least 20 times, you don't develop the rote memory.
Right.
There really isn't muscle memory, there's brain memory.
Exactly.
And that's what we're trying to develop.
Yeah, so we start with that rote, that habituation, then eventually in day 3, you kind of mentioned a little bit, we get to an overlearning where everything just kind of happens and comes together.
Yeah.
And it almost always only happens on the 3rd day. Kind of, what we see is the first day is like, hey, this is really cool, it's kind of neat to see this, I'm starting to get it. Day 2, I think I got this skill set. You get into the jet, you're transferring to a complex airplane. Then on day 3, it's like now you got it. Is that the experience you had
That
today?
was my experience today. Was I got in the jet and we did some basic maneuvering and upsets, and then during one of the upsets I had the hood on, and Randy gave me an inadvertent upset and inverted, and I reacted, I verbalized correctly and recovered, and at that point it clicked for me that now I have developed that rote memory, and I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Exactly. Kind of the been there, seen that value, right?
Yes.
And so, the way we do that is we build it kind of like you learn to fly, right? We start with academic training, get into the piston airplane, into the jet low altitude, into high altitude, into simulation, then the virtual reality. And so, once you leave the on-aircraft part, which is really where the human factors are so rich, and you develop that ability and confidence to function in the real world, then we kind of fill in the gaps with simulation, very low altitude upsets, all weather upsets. And then to your point in VR, it's an environmental transfer of skill, right?
Sure.
Now you can see it in your own airplane. So it kind of puts the icing on the been there, seen that value from your perspective. So overall, so very often we're talking to folks that are thinking about whether they need to do this training or not, or is it important to them as pilots. When you were here at the event, we talked about how this area of skill deficiency that pilots have is not their fault. It's because of the training system itself. And so done well, coming to a program like this, we can really plug in skills that don't contradict or replace, but complement what you get in your normal training. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? Maybe what your thoughts are on that, where you started on day 1 and how you feel now, just whatever your overall experience would be.
I've always kind of thought, well, I'm an aerobatic guy, I do low-level air shows, I know where the ground is, and I know that I don't want to pull to the ground, right? Yeah. But it's different in the jet. Things happen differently. The environment is different. The high-altitude environment is much different. I mean, my normal air shows are 500 feet above the ground, right? I mean, it's not that big a deal. But now we're at 30,000 feet. So now I believe that you really don't understand until you do this program really the whole process. And we intuitively know that we don't want to pull to the brown and we want to pull to the blue, but you need to develop that skill set, and the only way to do that is through training. Fly the flight, brief the flight, fly the flight, and debrief the flight. Right. And that, I'm a big proponent of that, and I believe that in the last 20 years, there has been a lack of tribal knowledge transfer, is what I call it. Right. That the stick and rudder pilots, the fighter pilots, that isn't what our young people are training for right now. And I see it all the time. I'm training my son right now to get his private pilot add-on next week. And the first thing I took him up was did skidding and slipping stalls.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you don't see that, and I've had people that I've taught that to as well as you do, that said, I've never seen that.
It's very true. A lot of people think, is upset training aerobatics. Well, there's some fundamental differences between aerobatics and upset training, right? Aerobatics is a precision maneuver, upset training is non-precision. Aerobatics is often very type specific. Upset training should be transferable to a wide variety of airplanes, right? And then precision versus non-precision. So do you obviously, with all your aerobatic background, which is kind of rare actually, do you see the distinct difference
Oh,
now?
totally.
Were you aware of that,
Yeah.
or is that something you realized or were you aware of before
You
you
know,
showed?
I had a little bit of upset type training in my jet flying, you know, but not really to the point that it was properly taught, I think. I don't believe that anybody really explained to me that this is transferable to really any platform.
Right.
You know, I don't care whether you're flying a Bonanza or you're flying Citation 4.
Right.
It's fully transferable. You don't need to do anything really any different.
Right, and that's the idea behind it. Step back far enough where you do have a bigger picture of what's going on, so you have a strategy that applies in a wide diversity of situations. Okay, so maybe kind of final thoughts on folks out there, whether they're CJP or other pilots or whatever they might be, on whether or not they should pursue a program like this. Is it worth their while in your
I think it's almost imperative. I mean, if you're flying any type of airplane, you should be doing some type of program like this.
Right.
You really need, there's no new way to kill yourself in an airplane. And we are seeing the same accidents happen the same time, the same way, all the time. And I believe that if you're flying any type of corporate jet, you need to go through a program. In fact, my son-in-law is an American Airlines pilot, and I'm going to give him one of these courses.
Awesome.
Because I think he's going to start flying my Citation, and I want him to. He's going to have my family in there, so I want him to have all the tools.
That's right. Well, that's great. Well, anything else at all, Scott?
Boy, I just want to tell you again what a first-class operation you have, and it's from the top to the bottom to the people on the flight line. Everybody is so polite and wanting to make your experience excellent. The briefings are excellent. The machines are well maintained. I think it's amazing. And what I like most is that when you're up there doing your maneuvering, you can see the runway down
Right.
here. I'm looking at the RTB back. If the engine fails, you can probably make the glide.
Well, that's one nice thing. It's so convenient. I mean, almost the entire flight, other than exiting and entering the aerodrome, is training.
Right.
And you're right there.
You're right there, and you have 3 runways. And your ability to be able to get into the MOA and be able to have this block altitude. I was fortunate enough when I was training in the Sovereign to have a Cessna test pilot do some actual training with me in the airplane, and I got a little bit of experience with some altitude stalls and how the airplane reacted at altitude, which is much different than it reacts in the sim.
Right.
I've been to several sim type ratings, and the sim instructor, I told him, this doesn't react anything like the airplane. You do know that.
Right.
And a lot of these instructors have only flown the sim.
Well, a lot of people will say, "Hey, what's wrong with my airplane? It's not acting the way the sim did, right?" In reality, it's the other way around. Right?
Exactly.
The simulator is supposed to be simulating the real airplane,
Right.
not the other way.
Right.
So, I don't have anything else, Scott.
Okay,
Thank you for
great.
sharing all that information, and thank you for the great compliments to the
No
team.
worries.
I'll pass that along.
Yeah.
They'll see this video, and it's just great having you here.
Great.
We look
Well,
forward to your
it's a pleasure to
son
finally
coming.
meet you. I'm going to bring my son here and my son-in-law both, and it's a pleasure meeting you. I've watched you and Otto on YouTube for a long time.
Okay.
And then I didn't realize till I was at Oshkosh one year. I'm talking to Randy, and he goes, "Yeah, I work at APS." I'm like, "What?" And I go, "Oh, those guys." So
that's
yeah,
great.
very cool.
Well,
Great
good.
job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.